me back to old Yazoo. Everything up here is new. I can't stand it, just must land it. Going back to old Yazoo. Everything you do, people got their eyes on you. It's compelling, yeah, me yelling.
Have you ever noticed how some people can change the atmosphere around them without saying a single word? They do not shout or beg. They simply step back, and suddenly everything shifts.
Just get your hand and breathe. How long will I have to wait? Standing at the station gate. Broken hearted, gotta get started. Going back to old Yazoo. Oh.
The energy in the room changes, and people start wondering and following them. Now, imagine if you did the same. If you stopped reacting to everything right away, if you chose silence instead of a quick response, retreat instead of anger, what do you think would happen? That is the key idea.
Hear me yelling, take me back to old Yazoo. If you don't like beans and rice, get your rice and beans.
When you stop making yourself constantly available, emotionally, physically, and mentally, you unsettle the world around you. People have gotten used to controlling you through your reactions and your need to please, but the moment you decide to move away quietly, the game changes. Those who thought they knew you discover they actually know very little about you. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Think about that. When you become less available, notice who. This reveals more about them than it does about you. It also shows how much you have been given without noticing. You say yes to avoid problems or keep people close, people who, in truth, may never have really cared about you. With each forced agreement, fast response, or emotional outburst, you lose a little energy. At the end of the day, you are left feeling tired, upset, or hollow because you have been too accessible to those who do not even deserve a moment of your silence. This does not mean you should ignore everyone forever. It means you should choose yourself first. Jung used the word individuation for the process of becoming whole, true, and complete. This path begins when you see that silence can be stronger than 1,000 arguments, and that stepping back, when done with awareness and not fear, can be a real show of power. Ask yourself, how long will you let other people's emotions control you? How long will you act like a puppet every time someone pokes your wounds? Perhaps it is time to cut those strings, to withdraw and become a bit mysterious. When you stop being always present, everything changes.
A child can have all of this too. Do you really see your child when you look at him? Look at David, age 9. How straight he stands.
From an early age, we are taught to answer right away, to read every message instantly, to say yes even when we mean no. We grow up thinking our worth depends on always being available. But here is a truth many never tell you. Being too available is not a virtue, it is a trap. As long as you believe you must be constantly reachable, emotionally or otherwise, others will wear you down and toss you aside the moment you stop being useful. Why? Because if you are always there, you become predictable, and predictable things are easy to use. People see you as a button they can press for attention or comfort, then ignore once they are satisfied. You may not notice this because you think that by being present for everyone, someone will do the same for you. But that is not how it works. Carl Jung talked about the persona, the social mask we wear to feel accepted and loved. This mask can force us to be too available. You say you are fine when you are not. You answer messages even when you are exhausted. You defend or explain yourself as if you owe everyone an explanation. The more you focus on other people's stages, the more you fade from your own life. Being constantly available is a subtle kind of self-betrayal. You are trying to dodge rejection and shape how others see you. But this control comes at the cost of your peace. You give away your energy as if it is endless, but it is not. The people who demand you be on call all the time do not really want you. They want what you give them: attention, a companion, or relief. Then, when you set a boundary and stop reacting, those same people might get upset and call you distant or strange. The real reason is that you are no longer doing what they want. Here is a tough truth. The more accessible you are, the less value you seem to have. When something is too easy to get, people respect it less. So think hard about who truly deserves your time, attention, and presence. Or better yet, think about who actually deserves your absence. Before you answer that, consider why we tend to give in or react so easily. What makes us keep saying yes or offering an immediate response? Carl Jung spoke of psychic energy, which is where we turn next. Your energy is all you have, and if you do not learn to guard it, others will use it for their own ends. Jung did not see the mind as a simple machine that reacts to anything without consequence. He viewed it as an energy system. Every thought, emotion, and action consumes part of that system. The question is, are you choosing where your energy goes, or is everyone else doing that for you? Each time you react instantly, rushing to defend yourself from a petty criticism, arguing just to win, or trying to please those who do not value you, you waste energy on things that do not help you grow. Jung once noted that the more you fight something, the stronger it can become in your life. If you are always drained, you are not weak, you are spending your energy in the wrong places. And when you live exhausted, you become an easy target. Manipulative people notice you cannot keep your energy safe, that you always jump to fix problems, so they use that. A healthy mind, Jung taught, conserves energy inside itself. It knows how to say no without guilt, remain silent without shame, and watch carefully before acting. Real power comes from the ability to choose how and when to act. You can only do this if you know yourself well enough to see your own triggers. Ask yourself, how many times have you lost sleep over a conversation that never got resolved? How many hours have you wasted replaying what you should have said, or wondering why someone treated you poorly? That is your energy leaking away. You are holding on to situations that should have ended long ago, keeping them alive by feeding them attention. Psychic energy is like a protective field. If you manage it well, you have presence, but if you waste it, you become invisible and unprotected. The world is not kind to those who have no boundaries. So start noticing what sets you off and makes you respond without thinking. These are the holes through which your energy escapes. Work on sealing those leaks, not to become cold, but to become more thoughtful. Know what deserves your attention and what does not. Now we reach a darker truth. A lot of our emotional reactions are programmed, and those who know this can manipulate us. They do not need to threaten or raise their voices. They only need to push certain buttons that we ourselves have left in plain sight. Jung called this projection. People often see things in others that they refuse to see in themselves. But it goes deeper. The more you're open and available, the easier it is for others to paint you as they wish. Think of the friend who only calls you when they are in crisis, the partner who expects you to save the day, or the person who praises you only when you serve their needs. They are not truly relating to you, they are relating to an idea of you, a role you unconsciously agreed to play. Why did you agree? Because you fear letting others down, fear losing them, or fear not being loved. The most powerful manipulation is often silent. It uses guilt, making you feel like you owe something. You feel the need to always help, even if it destroys you inside. But here is the big point. The manipulator does not have to fully control you. They just need you to keep reacting in the same way. When you stop reacting, the manipulation ends. When you respond with silence or walk away instead of explaining yourself, the image they had of you falls apart. They become uneasy because they can no longer predict you, and they might have to face their own faults. Not everyone is ready for that. People become nervous when you are not always around. Your silence is like a mirror, showing them their own emptiness. Many cannot handle that, so they may criticize you or stir up drama, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you stopped feeding their patterns. Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you withdraw from old cycles, you force others to confront their own shadows. It is painful for them because they have always used you as an escape. But are you prepared for the backlash? Are you ready to be misunderstood, left out, or even attacked for protecting your own peace? Because once you leave the old ways behind, a deep silence follows, and in that silence, a new kind of strength can grow. Let's talk about silence as the greatest weapon. Our world is loud. Everyone wants to speak, respond fast, and prove they are right, even at the cost of peace. But there is an overlooked power, the power of silence. Not the silence of fear, but a thoughtful silence that is full of purpose. Jung saw silence as fertile ground for real change. When you stop talking, you start watching, and you begin to see old patterns, toxic games, and ways you might hurt yourself. Silence brings clarity, and clarity can be dangerous to people who rely on your confusion to control you. Have you noticed how some people freak out if you do not answer right away? It is not because they miss you. It is because your silence removes their control over the story. When you talk, you are still in their game. When you are quiet, you are rewriting the rules. That disturbs people who depend on your constant reply. True silence is not about giving up. It is about holding on to your energy. It is refusing to be pulled into battles that are not worth it. Jung said that becoming your real self means stepping away from the noise so you can hear your own inner voice. But silence has a cost. It can alienate people who liked you only because you serve their needs. It can make you look distant to those who never really saw you anyway. They may see you as too different now. This happens not because you are at fault, but because you are no longer the easy resource they once enjoyed. The truth is, the more you grow, the more careful you become with words. You learn that every sentence is an investment of energy, and not everyone deserves your energy. Sometimes silence is not surrender, it is a sign of true control. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. Your quietness says it all, and if it bothers them, it tells you they may rely on noise to avoid facing themselves. Even if you understand all this, it will not matter if you keep doing the same things, saying yes out of habit, replying to messages that upset you, or keeping empty relationships alive. Knowing the truth without acting on it is just another form of self-deception. Real change happens when you decide to be more selective with your time and energy. Being consciously unavailable does not mean being cold. It means you are not always at everyone's service. You begin by making small changes. Do not reply right away. Pause and breathe before reacting. Walk away from tense discussions before they trap you. Switch off your phone and learn to say no. Not today, or I'm not interested. Most important, you do not owe anyone an explanation for your silence or your absence. You owe that to no one but yourself. Yes, people who depended on your constant presence may feel betrayed. They might say you have changed, and they are right. You are protecting your energy now. Jung knew that individuation often involves being alone, but not in a sad way. It is a sacred break from the chaos, a time to hear your own voice again. Watch who disappears or who pokes you again when you become more guarded. Watch who says you changed when you finally choose yourself. None of these signs mean you're doing it wrong. They mean you are freeing yourself from traps that once held you. The strongest silence is the one that rebuilds you from within. It reconnects you to a deeper sense of self, free from the world's demands. Only in that inner space can you regain your energy and remember who you truly are. You might feel lonely or guilty at first, but this is the start of a new life, one where you do not accept emotional leftovers or empty bonds. When you no longer allow others to use you, you might see them vanish or reveal their true nature. In that empty space, a calm enters. Where anxiety once ruled, peace finds a home. Where neediness once was, a stronger self grows. This is the kind of rebirth Jung pointed to, waking up to who you really are, no longer defined by others' opinions. Yes, some people will call you selfish or distant. Let them. A little loneliness is the cost of true freedom. In that space, you are not trying to fix yourself to keep others around. You let them go if they are not truly there for you. And that is when a new kind of energy flows in, where you are no longer at the mercy of anyone's demands. This is the paradox of becoming yourself. You might be misunderstood, but you will be genuinely respected, maybe not by everyone, but by those who matter. Because when you are not there for just anyone, you become rare and precious. In a world that often demands instant replies, continuous connection, and constant emotional accessibility, there is a hidden art to strategic withdrawal, deliberate unavailability, and the nourishing silence that follows. There is a pervasive notion that to be worthy, one must always be ready to respond, to soothe, to rescue, to fill in every gap left by another person's desires or emotional needs. Yet, behind this facade of endless giving, a profound truth emerges. The more readily and indiscriminately you offer yourself, your time, energy, attention, the more the world begins to treat you as an infinite resource. You become predictable in your unwavering presence, so much so that others lose sight of the real you, seeing only the function you perform. They press invisible buttons, expecting immediate emotional compliance, because you have tacitly trained them that you will always be there, ready to fulfill expectations and needs. This does not mean that kindness or empathy are flaws, but rather that a total lack of discernment regarding your own boundaries can be costly. When you reach this threshold of constant availability, the line between compassionate presence and emotional enslavement grows hazy, and you may start to experience chronic fatigue, mental exhaustion, and a profound sense of not recognizing yourself anymore. These observations find a powerful echo in Carl Jung's extensive understanding of the psyche. His emphasis on individuation and the high value he placed on recognizing how psychic energy operates speaks directly to the struggle of over-availability. Jung believed that the human mind is not just a reactionary mechanism responding to external triggers, but also a reservoir of energy that must be managed and protected. If you are perpetually and reflexively on call to the emotional or psychological requests of others, you pour out this reservoir without restraint, running the risk of leaving yourself energetically depleted. This depletion manifests in unexplainable tiredness, restlessness, irritability, and sometimes even depression. For you are giving so much of yourself that there is scarcely anything left to serve your own growth. When you live in a state of perpetual giving, an insidious pattern sets in. Others learn they can access your time and energy anytime they please. You might begin to sense that the more you deliver, the less gratitude or reciprocation you receive. It may start as a small crack in your sense of self-worth, a creeping realization that people's demands of you are not matched by their gratitude. Over time, this crack can deepen into a chasm of self-doubt. You might question whether anyone truly sees you beyond what you do for them. The feeling of being taken for granted can simmer beneath the surface, tempting you to lash out in frustration or to suffer in silence. There is an alternative, the deliberate act of becoming less available, pulling back your immediate reactions and finding refuge in thoughtful silence. Instead of continuing the cycle of instant replies, you step back and observe what happens when you no longer feed the dynamic with your predictable responses. Many who have taken this step describe a seismic shift in their relationships and environments. Suddenly, people who benefited from your unending presence express discontent, confusion, or even anger at your new boundary. The withdrawal of your once automatic support reveals a surprising truth. Much of your availability was taken for granted, and certain connections depended upon your perpetual compliance. When you cease to be the always there caretaker or emotional placeholder, those around you are forced to look elsewhere or confront the emptiness they had been distracting themselves from by leaning on you. In these moments, you discover who is genuinely concerned about your well-being and who has been using your presence for their own benefit. This is not a call to selfishness, it is a realignment of your own center of gravity. Jung highlighted that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. When you notice that certain people grow irritated the moment you withdraw, they reveal how heavily they depended on your availability to regulate their emotions or validate their sense of control. Their frustration or anger becomes a clue about their motives. By observing their reactions, you gain insight into your own patterns of responding, your own reasons for constantly seeking to please or pacify, and how easily you have been manipulated. This dance of manipulation is often subtle and operates through something Jung referred to as projection. Others project their unacknowledged needs, desires, or insecurities onto you, and because you are so eager to help or please, you take on those projections without questioning. Your identity becomes tangled in the roles that friends, family, or co-workers cast you in. Perhaps you become the designated peacemaker, the always cheerful friend, the perpetual listener. These roles start to shape your self-perception. The powerful and sometimes surprising fact is that by acquiescing to these projections, you are caught in a psychological system that places your worth in your fulfilling those roles. The day you choose not to engage in that role any longer, you begin to dismantle an entire framework that others use to define not only who you are, but also who they are in relation to you. When you step away from the reflex to please, a common fear arises, the fear of rejection and abandonment. A sense of guilt can seep in. You might worry that setting boundaries makes you appear cold or unloving. You may wonder if people will criticize you for no longer being nice. Yet, it is precisely this guilt that indicates how deeply you have been conditioned to respond without question. The conditioning is so strong that you almost feel as though you owe immediate availability to those around you. This in turn is one of the most significant reasons people find it difficult to say no or take time for themselves. Nonetheless, this guilt is a sign that you are entering a period of transformation, a liminal space where your psyche must unlearn old patterns and build healthier, more balanced strategies for interaction. Jung's concept of individuation comes to the forefront here. Individuation involves moving beyond unconscious, automatic behaviors and engaging with the deepest layers of your psyche to become authentically you. In the context of stopping constant availability, individuation means recognizing that your immediate compliance often masquerades as altruism, but can also be rooted in a hidden fear of conflict or a craving for validation. By pausing these reflexes and turning inward, you integrate suppressed elements of your own personality. You learn to say, "I won't respond right now," or "I need space," not as acts of petty defiance, but from a place of genuine self-awareness. The power of silence becomes a central theme. Silence in this sense is not a lack of communication, but rather a deliberate, mindful choice that disrupts habitual responses. It can be a tool for reflection, a suspension of knee-jerk reactions, a buffer that allows your genuine thoughts and emotions to surface. When you employ this kind of silence, you shift the energy dynamic in any interaction. The typical script of provocation and immediate response is halted, and those who rely on your reactivity no longer know how to steer the conversation or exploit your impulses. This can be unnerving to people who have grown accustomed to your predictable compliance. Yet, it can also open avenues for deeper, more honest communication with those willing to respect your newfound boundaries. If others protest or label you as distant, that can be a sign that they primarily valued your consistent function in their lives. They may have relied on you as an emotional safety net or an instant solution. Once you remove this safety net, they have to fend for themselves, confronting their own emotional swirl without the guarantee that you will rescue them. This revelation can be jarring, but also necessary. Not everyone is ready to confront it, so misunderstandings and conflict can arise. You might be accused of being uncaring or irresponsible. Nonetheless, this period of discord can also illuminate who truly respects you and who was simply reliant on your endless supply of kindness. Another layer to this shift involves the scarcity principle that tends to operate in the background of relationships. When someone is constantly present, their presence can begin to be taken for granted. If, conversely, your presence becomes more selective, it gains a certain weight and meaning. People begin to realize that your time and attention are gifts, not entitlements. Like any resource, when something is abundant, people often misuse or overlook it. When it is rare or selectively offered, it commands a higher level of respect. While it might sound a bit transactional or pragmatic, it ties into a deeper psychological truth. The world tends to value what is not freely or endlessly provided. Adjusting how available you are is, therefore, a way of reminding yourself and others that your energy is finite and precious. Jung's perspective on psychic energy further underscores why this reallocation of presence is essential for psychological health. By not reacting to every emotional cue in your environment, you conserve energy that can be channeled into self-awareness, creativity, and constructive pursuits. The repeated act of explaining, justifying, or defending yourself wears you down. Engaging in arguments simply to prove a point wastes vital energy that could be spent more productively. When you harness your reactivity and decide where and how to invest your time and resources, you regain mastery over yourself. You are no longer a marionette whose strings are pulled by every slight request or accusation. Instead, you stand at the center of your life, deliberately choosing where your emotional and psychological effort will go. This process is not always smooth. There is a transitional phase that can be awkward or lonely. In many ways, it is reminiscent of a psychological rite of passage. You may find that once you begin to say no or remain silent, some people drift away. Some might react with hostility. Certain relationships that you once believed would last a lifetime suddenly feel fragile. This can be painful, but it is also revealing. You discover that some connections were built on your submission to roles that did not serve your deeper nature. When you no longer fulfill those roles, the illusion of closeness dissolves. At first, this revelation can create a sense of loss. You might feel emptiness or question whether your new stance is truly beneficial. During this phase, it is crucial to cling to the understanding that genuine bonds will not only endure, but also respect your newly established boundaries. You may, for instance, see a dramatic shift in how others speak to you or approach you. People who truly care about you might offer more patient dialogue. They may attempt to understand your changes and evolve with you. Those who were more attached to the convenient version of you, the one who always complied, will likely grow distant or resentful. Although this might feel like a betrayal, it can also be seen as a purification process that clarifies which relationships are based on mutual respect and which depended only on your readiness to serve. Additionally, consider how your environment might react when you retreat from it. Perhaps you have always been the co-worker who volunteered for extra tasks. When you decide to set boundaries, you might see that some colleagues try guilt tactics to rope you back in. They might say, "We're relying on you," or "No one else can do it." If you recognize that your well-being or your personal projects are falling behind, you might respond, "I have other commitments right now." This statement can cause ripples of discomfort. Some might label you as less of a team player. Yet, you understand that it is not about rejecting collaboration. It is about preserving a sustainable amount of energy so that you do not burn out entirely. Jung's teaching here is particularly apt. As you become more discerning, you see the manipulative patterns that once slipped under your radar because you were too eager to help. Silence acts like a mirror. When you stop explaining, people are left to interpret your motives on their own. Their interpretations inevitably reveal their own biases and fears. If they assume you are angry, it might reflect their own anger, not yours. If they insist you must be holding a grudge, it might point to a mechanism within them that habitually projects grudges onto others. By resisting the urge to fill every gap with your words, you let others confront themselves, shining a light on the illusions and fantasies they harbor. This can, ironically, foster deeper honesty, provided they can handle it. Another significant aspect of conscious unavailability is the possibility of confronting your own psychological shadows. Jung taught that every individual has hidden aspects of themselves or shadow elements, which they often try to avoid recognizing. Constantly focusing on others' needs can serve as a distraction from facing your own unaddressed emotions or unresolved past experiences. By dedicating your time to remain perpetually available to external demands, you inadvertently dodge confronting your inner turmoil. Yet once you become less reactive to the outside world, those suppressed dimensions of your psyche no longer remain in the dark. They rise to the surface, sometimes in surprising ways. You might feel flashes of anger, sorrow, or confusion that you never noticed before. This is because, in giving yourself space, you open the door to self-reflection and deeper healing. In Jungian terms, this is where real individuation begins. By meeting your shadows, you integrate those energies into your conscious life, emerging more whole and authentic. To some, this path might look self-centered, yet there is a substantial difference between healthy self-focus and destructive narcissism. The practice of withdrawing your constant availability aims to create balance, not to establish yourself as superior or indifferent. It asks you to identify your genuine desires, evaluate which relationships and activities serve your growth, and sever or limit those that only drain you. By managing your energy wisely, you can ultimately show up more powerfully for the people and causes that truly matter. Rather than scattering your energy into countless trivial or manipulative demands, you gather it into meaningful engagements that enrich your life and the lives of those you truly care about. This fosters a deep kind of presence that is grounded, calm, and compassionate, not the frantic, guilt-driven presence that collapses when overwhelmed. The psychological insights Jung offered on projection and the persona support this transformation. The persona is the social mask you wear to fit societal expectations, often separate from your true self. Always being available can become part of that mask, an adaptation technique that wins approval and acceptance from others. Yet it also creates an internal war with your authentic being, who may yearn for solitude, introspection, or a more measured approach to social interaction. When you decide to remove or at least thin out that mask, certain illusions dissolve. You might discover that a portion of your identity was built around the idea that you exist primarily to care for everyone else. Relinquishing that notion can be freeing, but also disorienting at first. After all, if you are not needed for constant affirmation and problem solving, who are you? Paradoxically, releasing the incessant drive to be needed can unveil your genuine worth. Once you break free of the persona that ties your self-esteem to being of constant service, you can begin to explore your deepest passions, curiosities, and ambitions. You might uncover creative pursuits or personal goals that were put on the back burner because you were too busy expending your energy on external obligations. This reorientation can be truly life-changing, ushering in a new chapter of self-discovery and growth. You might realize that the strength you used to devote to catering to others can now be redirected toward learning a new skill, pursuing a dream, or nurturing the relationships that truly reciprocate. Your emotional bandwidth expands for those who truly value and respect your presence. When you nurture yourself this way, you become a stronger, more balanced person, someone who can genuinely offer help to others without sacrificing your own center. The shift then ceases to be about cutting people out for the sake of isolating yourself. Instead, it becomes an act of self-respect that allows you to determine where your time, energy, and love can be best placed. In doing so, you embody what Jung called the process of becoming whole. Each day becomes an opportunity to choose actions that align with your sense of integrity rather than reflexively answering to external stimuli. A pivotal moment in this journey occurs when you realize the degree to which your reactivity was enabling other people to avoid dealing with their own unresolved issues. When you remove the immediate emotional comfort you once provided, you no longer protect them from facing the consequences of their actions or inactions. Although some may interpret your silence or reduced accessibility as hostility, in truth, it is a gift, an invitation for them to mature and handle their own emotional states. Some relationships flourish under this new dynamic. Freed from the cyclical patterns of overdependence, you and the other person can evolve into a healthier form of relating. Others, however, might wither, revealing that they were never built on authentic connection, but rather on your constant emotional labor. This period of transition could be described as a breaking open. It shatters illusions, unearths hidden motives, and lays bare the real substance of your interactions. It is entirely possible you will lose certain friendships or even romantic partnerships that cannot adapt to the new framework. Yet you might gain a more authentic relationship with yourself, one that affirms your right to be discerning about where you invest your energy. Over time, you may also find that your renewed sense of self draws in relationships of a higher caliber, those built on genuine respect and shared values. In the midst of these changes, consider the role of conscious communication. While silence is powerful, you do not necessarily have to abandon all forms of explanation. However, if you choose to communicate your boundaries, do so out of clarity, not out of guilt or compulsion. Instead of offering elaborate defenses, you might simply say, "I need some space right now," or "I do not feel like discussing this at the moment." If the other person respects you, they will understand or at least attempt to understand. If they react with scorn, the nature of your relationship to them might need re-evaluation. Regardless, remember that you do not owe an account of every shift in your emotional availability. If you find yourself bombarded by guilt trips or manipulative rhetoric, observe that those who truly care about you will not weaponize your boundaries against you. A critical test arises when you encounter confrontation from those who benefited from the old pattern. They may attempt emotional blackmail or even accuse you of being selfish or neglectful. In these moments, recall that seeking your own psychological wholeness is not a negative act. Sometimes it is exactly what is required to live authentically and stop perpetuating mutual illusions. Self-preservation does not equate to cruelty. In fact, it is a prerequisite for healthy relating. Without the ability to preserve and replenish your own wellspring of energy, you will be in no position to genuinely give of yourself. Jung recognized that sustainable compassion arises from a secure, integrated psyche, not from a fragmented self that bleeds energy at every turn. Another consequence of this shift is the emergence of a different kind of presence within you, one that does not rely on spoken words but on the resonance of your being. In social situations, you might find that you can sit quietly yet emanate a calm authority. Others might notice something has changed in you. You are less reactive, more grounded, and less likely to be caught up in trivial arguments. Some might misread that composure as aloofness. Others might admire it. Either way, you will sense that you are retaining your vital force instead of scattering it in every direction. Over time, this subtle transformation can become the hallmark of someone who has moved beyond codependent patterns and into a space of self-trust. There is a profound sense of mystery that arises when you remove yourself from others' constant demands. People who once felt they knew you intimately may realize they actually knew only a fraction of your being, often just the part that catered to their needs. This mystique can feel liberating. It signifies that you are no longer pinned down by external definitions. You allow yourself the space to explore your inner world without the constant necessity of translating yourself for others. The paradox is that as you become less outwardly available, your inner life grows more vivid, more resonant, more alive. This shift cannot occur without discomfort, but the discomfort is part of the journey toward a more honest existence. At times, you may waver. You might second guess whether you are acting from a place of healthy self-preservation or from stubborn pride. As you refine your approach, you will learn to differentiate between situations that call for compassion and those that are best met with a quiet boundary. There is no perfect formula for this discernment. It is a learning process that evolves with each interaction. Your body, mind, and spirit will give you signals, perhaps stress in your stomach or a sense of dread when someone's name appears on your phone, that alert you to the relationships or demands that drain you. Pay attention to these signals. By respecting your own limits, you also avoid building up resentment that could ultimately damage your ability to connect with others in a genuine way. Once you become comfortable with this new modality, you may notice a subtle but significant transformation in your self-talk. The old voice of guilt that said, "You should respond right away," or "You have to solve this problem or you are a bad friend," starts to lose its hold. In its place, a voice of wisdom might say, "You are allowed to take a moment," or "You can choose how to engage." This new voice fosters a healthier relationship with yourself, granting you permission to check in with your own needs before rushing to meet someone else's. The shift is not about never helping others. It is about helping them and yourself. Only when you genuinely can, and when the situation calls for it in a way that does not undermine your well-being. As you embrace this transformation, you learn that real respect often grows from a background of restraint. When you speak less frequently yet with greater intention, your words hold more weight. When you choose to attend certain events mindfully, your presence is more keenly felt. The environment and the individuals in it begin to understand that your involvement is a deliberate act, not a forced or guilt-driven reflex. In time, you may find that the people you attract or remain connected to are those who mirror back the respect and care you have learned to show yourself. Sometimes the path of conscious unavailability can lead to a deep, healing solitude. Solitude need not be equated with loneliness. Instead, it can be the space where your authentic self emerges most clearly. It is where you can indulge in introspection and creative pursuits without the constant pull of others' expectations. In solitude, you may find respite from the draining hustle of daily life. You might reconnect with nature or rediscover simple joys you had once neglected. In doing so, you restore balance, allowing yourself to become your own anchor rather than being moored to external demands. It also helps to remember that setting boundaries and pulling back from constant availability does not mean you must neglect empathy or kindness. The goal is not to become callous, rather it is to ensure that when you do act kindly, it is an authentic gesture rather than an act performed out of fear, guilt, or habit. Genuine kindness nourishes both giver and receiver. Forced kindness, on the other hand, can lead to hidden resentments and burnout. Jung believed that authentic individuation naturally leads to greater compassion because you become more aware of your shared humanity. Thus, ironically, by restricting your availability to others in certain moments, you can actually cultivate a deeper empathy in the moments you do choose to engage. As you solidify these insights and integrate them into your daily life, reflect on how your self-image evolves. The shift from being perpetually at others' disposal to being a guarded yet generous caretaker of your own well-being can dramatically alter your self-perception. Where you once felt scattered or used, you might now sense wholeness and autonomy. Where you once fretted over others' approval, you might now find comfort in your sense of inner alignment. This is not the same as shutting people out. It is choosing relationships and engagements that foster your growth rather than drain it. In this way, you continue on the path toward deeper individuation. When you do choose to be present for someone, the quality of that presence is more luminous, more genuine, because it arises from a surplus of inner resources rather than obligation or fear. You can meet others in a truly heartfelt way, knowing you are not sacrificing your own well-being in the process. In such moments, you taste the profound sweetness of a balanced life. You give because you want to, not because you have to. The result is often more satisfying and authentic human connections. One might worry about losing empathy in the process, yet genuine empathy flourishes when you attend to yourself first. To truly empathize, you need to be present, and you cannot be fully present if you are exhausted or resentful. By clearing away the unnecessary drain of unending requests, you create a space where real empathy can thrive. Empathy that is chosen, not coerced. You become able to discern when someone genuinely needs your support versus when they are unconsciously using you to avoid their own inner work. In the former case, you can be a true companion. In the latter, you can kindly decline or maintain boundaries, empowering them to find healthier ways of coping. With each act of discernment, you deepen the foundation of self-respect upon which your life stands. This is not the kind of respect that demands subservience from others, but the quiet inner conviction that you are worthy of peace and wholeness. You realize that your mission is not to be an on-call caretaker for the world, but to contribute in ways that align with your real capacities and passions. By protecting your psychic energy, you ensure that you can fulfill this mission without sacrificing your health and happiness. In this sense, the entire premise of being less available becomes a gateway to more meaningful service. The paradox is that by pulling back from superficial engagements, you gather the strength to serve the world in deeper, more genuine ways. Eventually people notice. Some may be drawn to you as a source of stable calm, others might label you as distant. Either way, you will have left behind the frantic scramble for approval that once defined you. Your relationships, though fewer perhaps, become richer, bonded by mutual respect rather than codependent needs. Your daily actions become more intentional, carved from a place of true choice rather than hurried acquiescence. And in the distance, you may hear the echoes of your former self, that version of you always desperate to please, and you will smile gently because you understand that was a stepping stone, not your final destination. The transformation described is neither easy nor linear. It may involve taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, especially when confronted with the guilt or fear of losing people. But each time you reaffirm that your worth does not hinge on endless availability, you strengthen the foundation of a life that is genuinely yours. There is nobility in recognizing that your presence is a gift to be bestowed wisely, not a public resource to be drained at will. In the end, the call to stop being available is not a call to abandon caring. It is a call to embody a higher form of love, starting with love for oneself. Only then can the well of empathy run clear and strong. Only then can you meet others without the hidden resentments and toxic compliance that plague unbalanced relationships. This kind of love invests in genuine connections, cherishing the equilibrium where both parties can grow rather than fostering codependency. By carefully wielding your time, energy, and silence, you empower both yourself and those around you to break free from the illusions of perpetual accessibility. Such a transformation resonates through every layer of your life. It echoes in your relationships, your work, your spiritual pursuits, and your self-image. Bit by bit, it reveals that the greatest revelations often come in the quiet intervals when you are not being pulled in 1,000 directions. In those moments, you comprehend the subtlety of genuine power, the power that does not need to shout, beg, or prove. It only needs to stand firm in its own truth, shining a steady light in a world of clamor and distraction. And as you embrace your own center, offering your presence more judiciously, you honor the depths of your psyche and realize that in the final analysis, your energy is the most valuable currency you have. Guard it well, spend it wisely, and your life will overflow with the resonance of true, unforced meaning.